Welcome to the omnigamersclub podcast, the podcast for games on all platforms, including pachinko parlors. I am Daniel Winter.
And I'm Mark Uasa. And we have a special guest with us today.
A returning guest.
Yes.
Hey.
Welcome
I'm
back,
Amanda
Amanda.
Vallerand.
Welcome. Thanks for coming back. I think you joined us previously on, was it Russian Railroads? I think we discussed.
It was, yeah.
Yes.
That was 2 years ago or something.
Yeah, and I don't think I've played that game since. Good game, though. Good game. But welcome.
Well,
how are you doing, Amanda?
I'm doing very good. I am working a lot on game design stuff because I have a Kickstarter coming out next month. So it's been a lot of it's been a very hectic few weeks, I would say.
I bet, yes. So because you're self-publishing this one, aren't you?
Yes, yeah. So I run a little label called the Subsurface Games, and so we had a first game come out in 2021 called With a Smile and a Gun, and this new game is called Puppets in High Places. It's sort of a thematic sequel to the first, but it's
Excellent.
a standalone game, and yeah.
Excellent. So how does this new game differ sort of mechanically?
Oh yeah, it's completely like there's a few like winks to the way the old one works, but the first one is like a area control with dice drafting, and this one is a rundell game with a tug of war thing.
Do you love a good rundell?
So yeah.
Excellent.
Well,
we'll drop the Kickstarter link in the show notes if anyone wants to follow along. And you also have a blog, Subsurface Games.
I do have a blog, subsurfacegames.ca, and I talk about game design stuff, and I try to go a little bit past. A lot of people talk about like don't play this with your mom and get your game to the table as fast as you can. I try to go a little bit beyond that and more like practical and concrete lessons that I learned while working on this thing, which is you always learn new stuff when you work on games.
Yes, yeah, no, it's like always things that you never stop learning when it comes to game design.
Yeah, oh for sure.
Yeah, and so if you're interested in game design, check out that blog. We're a big fan of the local game design here. Mark and I just last week helped playtest a local design. I'm not sure how much of that we can talk about. Love hearing more about that scene. So I don't think we're going to discuss news this episode because lots of other games to talk about. Unless you all really want to talk about some FTC legislation and non-compete clauses. But let's get into the playlist. Let's start with video games. Amanda, what have you been playing lately?
Just finished after a few years of playing it on and off the Hitman World of Annihilation trilogy, which is so I assume that most people know Hitman, but just in case, it's a game where you play as a hitman and you go around. It's sort of roguelike-esque in that you go through the scenarios and you try to do multiple stuff and you learn everyone's habits and stuff, and it's been an interesting ride to go through that, and you get to kill people in very creative ways, which
Yeah, so those are previously 3 different games that they rolled into like one platform now, right?
Yeah, exactly. And and there's like a bunch of obviously like the DLC and all of that stuff in addition. So there's I think I bought them as one, like the World of Annihilation package contains like Hitman 1, 2, 3, which are not actually the first and the second or the third. There's more before that on other platforms, but all of the modern ones and then a bunch of the DLCs that go with it, which was given the amount of hours I've put into that, very good purchase.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. I think it's kind of like a little bit like the Halo Master Chief Collection, right? Like they kind of included some of the or redid some of the older games in the new engine. So they brought maps back, is my understanding. So that's really cool to see when a publisher or a game developer kind of like honors their old work, because like game preservation is so important, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I've not played any of those. Sorry.
Yeah.
I've not played any of the Hitman games, so I've heard there's a lot of value there, basically.
For sure.
I just find them a little intimidating personally. Like each level is just so much going on. There's a huge element of play this level. a dozen times to learn every little level of simulation that's going on in the world, and then obviously that's a huge appeal for most players. Little intimidating coming in as a new player, but there's a lot of content across those 3 games. Mark, what have you been playing?
Yeah, I've been playing a bunch of stuff. I've been playing. I just beat Botany Manor last night. I'm not going to say too much about that because we might be covering it soon. Who knows?
Oh,
but it's a lovely little game. I'll talk a little bit about Eiyuden Chronicles. There's 2 games in that series: Rising, which came out a while back, and then 100 Heroes just came out, I think, this past month.
Yes.
And I didn't really know much about them. I saw the artwork on Game Pass and thought, oh, that looks kind of cool. And it turns out that Eiyuden Chronicles Rising is a totally different game. It's a side-scrolling action RPG, kind of similar to Sakuna of Rice and Ruin or other side-scrolling kind of 2D RPGs. The art's great. Really nice writing. Like it's got a good sense of humor, and it's kind of cute and kind of like does some fourth wall breaking a little bit, which I love to see. Is something out of the ordinary in terms of JRPGs. You know, JRPGs can be a little bit Me Too, kind of samey.
They have a formula.
Yeah. And then I just tried playing, I don't know, just 2 or 3 hours of Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes, the newer one, and I learned that it's a totally different game. It's a top-down, it's 2.5D, same beautiful pixel art, but it's fully voice acted in English and Japanese, and it just seems like really high quality, like another degree way past Rising. So if you played Rising and you weren't too excited about that, it is more of a basic game. 100 Heroes is just like on a totally different level, so I highly recommend trying that out.
That name's referring to the fact that there is literally 100 playable characters, I believe.
That's right, what? And they're recruitable. Like they're all recruitable. Some of them, like you can easily miss. You don't have to recruit all 100 companions, but you can. And I think that's kind of the fun, right? It's like Pokemon, kind of collect them all, sort of thing. So I'm excited to dig deeper.
I was going to say, people are super excited about Baldur's Gate, and it's like 14 characters, and you have 100.
How do you choose between 8? Now you can choose between 100.
Well, the cool thing is that your party has this like sort of like row system, right? Like the other game I'm playing, Unicorn Overlord, has just the typical 2 rows, right? You got your guys in the front and your guys in the back. This one has 3 rows, and so you have your ranged and then like a support class, and some of them I realized, like you can't even put the melee in the second row. Like you can put the melee in the second row, but they can't attack. They're too far out. So you got to factor in things like that. So I started with 6 characters, but I actually can't use 4 of them in the front row because there's only 3 slots. So you got to start thinking tactically pretty much right from the beginning, and I think that's cool. So I'm excited to dig in more. I only have like 7 characters, so only awesome. 7.
And this is based on the older Suikoden series, I believe.
It's spiritually related to that, but it's not officially. But I think it gets a lot of inspiration from that older series.
And I believe they were originally kickstarted, these games, which we don't often see in video games these days. It's
especially out of Japan. Yeah, but this one is like an older school developer. I think some of the original devs worked on those old games.
Yes.
Natsume is the dev, I think, out of Japan, and their history goes back like 30 plus years. So there's some legit veterans in here. So it's great to see.
Excellent.
It's recommended.
Cool. Okay, well, let me just quickly talk about a game. I'm still been picking away at Pacific Drive that we discussed last episode. Amanda, are you familiar with that game at all? Pacific Drive?
No, what is that?
No. It's a immersive sim survival roguelike game. You basically have an old station wagon driving around the Pacific Northwest in the exclusion zone, so collecting various resources, and there's various anomalies that are changing physics and doing all kinds of funky things. So, Mark, have you played any more of this since we last talked about it?
I played 0. I'm glad to be done with it. I think it's a good game, but it's really intense, you know.
I'm about to look it up, but
yeah, it's cool. Like it has all those things that Daniel mentioned, but it's got a really strong like car maintenance aspect to it.
Oh,
and we did a whole episode on it, but it's kind of like meditative.
Listen to that.
Yeah, it's pretty like it's super unique, and I like unique games that do something different. So this is definitely that.
Yes, I'm still really enjoying it. I'm picking away at it. I am hitting various frustration points in that once you get to certain levels, the progression path, you need very specific resources and objectives, and the game doesn't really explain where you find those. And so I hit several walls in terms of. Excuse me, sorry, my cat Ted has joined the conversation for those listening.
Yeah.
So there's various resources that I had driven past on various runs. I'd driven right past, not even realizing there were resources, and the game doesn't really call attention to them. So until you learn, like here, knowledge is the real weapon, right? And you have to learn what you're looking for, learn what hazards to watch out for, and so once you start to get more familiar with the world, it all starts to click into place. So I think I'm over that next big hump right now and still enjoying it. I'm hoping to close that out soon. I've also, everyone talking about Fallout right now with the new TV show. And I'm still picking away at Fallout 76. Still a sympathizer for that game. I will defend it, even before the various patches.
Yes, I remember you were a booster of that game for a long time, so that's cool to see. You're not just joining the bandwagon. That said, I haven't played a Fallout game in a long time. I tried to start up Fallout 4 since we covered the tabletop RPG in one of our episodes, and it was a real like snooze. But apparently there's new patches, so
apparently they're incredibly buggy.
But 76 came out like 5-6 years ago, and
you're
long time.
That's cool that it's still good enough to get into people's rotations.
Well, they've been patching it on and off, and apparently they're coming out with a huge new zone to explore sometime this year. So this last month, it's had more players than ever before with the interest of the TV show. So the Fallout series broadly going through a huge revival right now. I mean, I don't want us to open up conversation to the TV show. We could sit here and talk about that all day. Have either of you seen that the Fallout TV show?
No, I fully intend to just trying to see if that fits the wife the test. See if we just finished watching The Witcher, so maybe that'll be a nice transition into that. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, my wife knew nothing about the series and really enjoyed the TV show. So broadly, I mean, just keeping it short, I really enjoyed that show. It has its issues in terms of balancing the various tones, but then so do the games at times. But broadly, very good adaptation. So any other games either of you want to discuss in the video game space?
You know what? There's another thing I've been playing. I don't know. Have either of you heard of Tape to Tape?
No.
Sounds familiar. No, tell us more.
Tape to Tape is the perfect game to play like when you come back from a long day of work, because it is very stupid. It's in that series of games that came out after Slay the Spire that are like the same kind of roguelike kind of thing, but instead of doing like card battle, you play a game of hockey.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at a video of this right now.
It's very like arcadey and very like fast paced, where like periods are 2 or 3 minutes, and you get the upgrades like being able to like throw your sticks at people to trip them up, and or like farting so people get pushed out. It's really, really stupid, and it's great as a like, I don't know what to do in the next 15 minutes, but I'm too tired to like actually do anything useful with my time. So that's been great to feel those long days of like cutting prototypes.
Wait, there are grappling hooks in this hockey game?
Oh yeah, of course. Wait, is that not
all games are better with grappling hooks? Obviously. No, I'm just looking at a video, and I know absolutely nothing about hockey to my shame, but this has a really cool animation style, sort of very cartoony, cel shaded, dynamic animation. So yeah, that's really cool.
At the same time, it's got that like traditional like EA Sports like NHL '94 kind of over the top view. So that definitely brings back memories of playing on the Sega Genesis. Hockey games are very, 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 very strong in Canadian lore, as you might imagine. Oh, that's really cool.
Excellent. I'll check that out. Mark, anything else?
In terms of video games, no, I'm still chipping away at Unicorn Overlord. That game is fantastic, but it's a little intense because some of the battles are short, and you can fit them in like that 15-minute span, like you were talking about, Amanda. But some of them are long, and they just kind of draining because it's like, oh, I have to be strategic now. And who knew that they could actually get a RTS accomplished on a little Nintendo Switch screen with console controls, but they really did. So it's super impressive. But I'm just kind of like playing that in little bites in between other games just to balance it out.
Nice. I'm still waiting for that to come in at the library. I think it's still in order. So looking forward to checking that one out at some point.
That's a good one.
One other one I just wanted to quickly mention is I hinted last episode that I'd been playing Dragon's Dogma 2, which I think makes an interesting companion to Pacific Drive in terms of how those games both treat friction and how they both sort of de-center the player. I'd mentioned how Pacific Drive doesn't really care about the player. Like, the world is happening around you. It's not there to empower you, right? And Dragon's Dogma definitely feels the same. This is, sorry, I should say, this is a sequel to the Japanese RPG from 2012, I want to say, that no one ever expected a sequel to, but was a bit of a cult hit. So obviously it centers the player in terms of you are the chosen one and you're destined to rule the world, but mechanically it does not care about you, I should say. Like, it's not there to make you feel like you're on a power trip. There is very limited fast travel, was the big discussion point around this. So like you can't just go wherever you want. You have to literally walk from place to place for the large part. And there are there are systems of fast travel, but it's all sort of internalized diegetically within the game world. Like, you have to go and get a cart from one world to another. There are fast travel crystals, but they're a consumable gem that you have to pay like 10,000 gold for. So that was partly what got me into this, because like what a game I'm thinking about way too much is Morrowind, and how it had a whole transit network basically. And I'm still chasing the dragon of trying to like recapture that. And this doesn't quite get there. It's not quite as robust as that. But it does force you to go out and experience the world rather than just rushing from place to place, which I really appreciate. But the real takeaway here, though, is this was in the original Dragon's Dogma, but one of the key systems here is the pawn system, where you design your own character.
That's PAWN for the listeners at home.
Yeah,
not PORN.
I'm sure the internet will serve you for either. So you design a pawn who is basically an assistant. So you design a secondary character who will follow you around. And it is a little weird that they're not a slave, just getting it out there, but they are there to do all your beck and call. They're like a race of people designed to like help the chosen one for reasons. I don't know. It's a little strange, but mechanically it's really fun just having a secondary person there. But the thing is, you also get to summon other players' pawns. So you go to these crystals and you can choose up to 2 other pawns to follow you, and they're all created by other players. So some of them obviously are very wacky or like based on other characters. I'm sure you can find The Witcher. Geralt is probably in there somewhere. But you can just also just find them just wandering around the world. So you'll be walking from one town to another, and you'll just come across other pawns walking around the world or fighting monsters, and they'll say, "Hey, can I join your party?" So that always feels really dynamic, and it encourages you to swap pawns out because they don't level up. Your pawn levels up, other players don't. So you have to keep swapping out new ones and constantly getting new party members and swapping them out, and this changes the dynamics of how your party works pretty regularly. And it's again a little bit of a it's not quite a simulation game, but there are elements of that in terms of being a lot of systems and different mechanics that are bouncing off each other with the magic and the monsters like monsters you can climb. Some of the bigger monsters you can literally like just clamber up them, like Monster Hunter style. And so a lot of different systems that are bouncing off each other, and it's just always fun to see those interacting. And it definitely just feels like a game that isn't. It feels like its own game. It's not following those formula of other JRPGs. It definitely feels like it was designed in a silo without taking inspiration from other games, for better or worse. It's very unique in that sense.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, because I think Dragon's Dogma, I own number 1, because you can get it easily at, like, for $6 a lot of the time on sale. And I played a little bit of it, and it is actually by the same publisher as Monster Hunter. It's Capcom, right?
I think so.
In both cases. Yeah. So there's definitely some like connected DNA there. But the original has that pawn system as well. And you got these little helper dudes, and they're AI controlled and kind of dumb, right? Because they just don't really listen obediently a lot of the time. But that kind of creates like the chaos, right? A little bit of the chaos and a little bit of the fun of RPGs. I like RPGs when you get to collect helpers, get to collect party members.
It's a bit of a comedy of errors, seeing like you'll have your 4 pawns and you'll run into a group of guards or another party, and there's just like a dozen people all bouncing off each other and throwing spells, and it's just it's chaos. Or a comedy of errors as you see one of the pawns trying to climb the back of a griffin, and then the griffin flies away with them on the back of it, and it's always lots of little moments of chaos that are fun to appreciate. So that is Dragon's Dogma 2.
I didn't expect when you started talking about Pacific Drive earlier that it would be compared to Dragon's Dogma, but sure, yeah, I see it now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's mostly about the friction in terms of
it
challenging
makes
you,
sense.
And no, it's something I've come to appreciate, rather than another Ubisoft game with a bunch of icons on the map to fast travel between and just seamlessly shoot things with absolutely no pushback,
no resistance.
Yeah. Anyway, shall we get to the board game table?
Yeah.
Okay, Amanda, what have you been playing? Oh, sorry, Mark. Sorry, do you want to start us off?
I was just gonna say that I haven't been playing much in terms of board games, so I'll get mine out of the way. The only board games I've been playing, aside from our feature story game, is that prototype. The hint hint, Rose Gauntlet prototype. I see you're wearing the shirt, Daniel. So this is a game called Gone to Gaia. It's obviously not out yet. It's not even on Kickstarter, but it's being designed by our good local friend Quinn Brander here in Vancouver. Previous guest of the show. I think he was on the Hades episode.
Yes. Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. And he previously designed a couple of games that I've playtested in the past. Obviously, he did Rebuilding Seattle. Mm-hmm. And then there's I'm not sure if this is news, but there's a new Rebuilding game coming out in the future. But the game we playtested was called Gone to Gaia. And it's a sort of like a RPG in a board game box concept. And there's like a mini campaign. It takes place over like a week of sessions. And you go, you choose your party members. And I think he called it like a roguelite. Like a roguelike in a box. And I won't say much about it, except it totally works. It feels like a complete game right now, aside from just being cardboard components, paper prototype components. But it feels like a really solid game. There's decent writing involved, and it already seems more developed than a lot of RPG in a box sort of board games that we played in the past. So pretty cool there. So look forward to that. Gone to Gaia from Rose Gauntlet Games. Their Kickstarter is coming up in a few months, I would imagine.
I believe so. We can't talk about too much yet. I mean, these games will change so much, so I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of it all, but it definitely had a lot of fun potential. You called it a roguelite, and to me, the one that it reminded me most of was Dead Cells, in terms of you're getting... basically, you have a character that you can mix and match a bunch of weapons, and you're leveling up. There might be a dozen weapons that you can choose between, and you can level up each of those weapons. And so each run, for lack of a better term, you're choosing which of those weapons to level up and the way they synergize with each other in different ways was quite fun to explore. So keep an eye out on that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Slay the Spire before, Amanda, and it kind of has that feel of that because like the weapons and the abilities are on cards and they have a limited use, but if you play the cards in certain ways, because you're sort of playing them down on this little personal board of yours, you can kind of like unlock more like energy points, essentially more action points. So you might be able to pull off like 50% more actions than you would if you weren't paying attention. If you play it cleverly, you can like unlock these sequences of combos, and I enjoyed that.
Interesting.
Yeah, fun stuff coming there. But yeah, please, Amanda, tell us about what you've been playing.
So my wife and I started the legacy campaign of Sagrada Artisans recently, which I don't know. I assume you've played or heard of the original Sagrada?
Game of Sagrada, yeah.
So without getting into the spoilers of it, Sagrada Artisans is the same gameplay, but instead of you placing the dice on your board, it's a coloring book that you just fill out. And so it opens up a lot of different options and different possibilities in the design, and it also gives you a nice picture to keep afterwards and stare at. So that's been a interesting thing that we've been it's a kind of game where you really cannot play just one. Like if the box is out, we're gonna play 2 or 3 back to back, and just leave it set up just in case after dinner we want to play a fourth kind of thing. So that's always great. Have either of you played or gone into this? Mark, have you played the Sagrada?
I am embarrassingly very inexperienced with Sagrada. I think I played it one time, just like a demo game. Someone taught me how to play it. So I know that there's dice placement on a little grid, and then you have like cards or something that sort of define how you should play them, or there's some sort of like knock-on effects.
Yeah,
that's all I know.
And the interesting thing about that is that given that this one has the legacy version has the paper that you're filling, and they change the shapes from one scenario to the next, and they also predetermine the tools you have and the scoring condition. So it's really much more curated to give you like maximal tension amongst all of those things, as opposed to just randomly taking out some scoring conditions and this game, there's like everything is color based. There's no point in looking at the numbers on anything, or so it makes, I think, a decent argument on curating things instead of procedurally generating stuff, and it was very interesting in that point.
How many games are basically in the campaign? Like how long does it take to play through that?
There's 10 games in the campaign, and then I haven't read the rules for that part, but there's a large pack of extra sheets to keep on playing afterwards. But as far as I know, there's 10 games in the campaign. Will we unlock extra stuff afterwards? Who knows?
And but each one of those has you basically coloring a completely different pattern rather than the same grid game to game.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting. Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Color It, the Harbor game with my daughter, which is like basically like using dice to like draft a color and filling in certain numbers on a picture, coloring in. So I think this is like a much more complicated version of that. But I imagine it's still quite sort of meditative in terms of just coloring, right? You can get as complicated that you can just like do a wall of color, or you can get really intricate and lean into the coloring as a more meditative experience.
For sure. Yeah.
Excellent.
So I've been playing that, and we discovered this cute little flip and write game called Fliptown, which is a game from Stephen Aramini, the designer of Sprawlopolis. And Fliptown is sort of cowboy Wild West themed game where you're going to flip like cards, like from a regular deck of cards, and you're going to use one of the cards which the suit is going to tell you which zone of the board you're going to be taking action in. Then another card, its value is going to determine which specific action on that board you're going to take, and then the third card you keep for to make a poker hand. And so there's a lot of very interesting decision in just revealing 3 cards. It's the same cards for everyone, but very quickly you start leaning different ways because, well, at the beginning of the round, I don't really care whether I get the 8 of hearts or the jack of spades for my poker hand, but eventually it's like, oh, I already have 2 jacks. That one would be really helpful. So there's this interesting tension where at the beginning you're really focused on the actions, and later on you're really focused on the poker hand, which gives the game an interesting arc.
Yeah, I mean, Mark was just talking last episode about using poker mechanics in Balatro, and how you can sort of spin poker out into other mechanics. So I imagine this makes an interesting companion to that.
Yeah.
Mark, are you familiar with that?
Fliptown, no, but while listening to your description, Amanda, like my synapses were just firing. It's like, what did you just say? 2 jacks?
Poker?
Two jacks? Oh no. Like the it's like a brain bug, like we mentioned last time. Balatro just gets in there and takes up, like 70% of my brain and has to kick out a bunch of stuff. So it's a problem.
Yeah. Feel you on that.
Okay, well, I'll just quickly talk about a small game that I've been playing, Sea Salt and Paper. So a lot of people were talking about this last year as a one of the games of the year. It's a very small box, tiny little like basically the size of a regular deck of cards. Beautiful illustrations, I will say. Like not even illustrations; it's all photographs of origami, and every card is basically a completely unique. Like it's an origami crab on this one, the origami mermaid on this one. Like they're all unique cards and like beautifully crafted, should we say, not illustrated. I admittedly, to my shame, had dismissed it as looking a little too light. My game group doesn't really play light games, party games, anything like that. And I wasn't sure if there was already a place for it. But at TCTC recently, I had the chance to try it, and yeah, I mean, it's there is absolutely a place for lighter card games, for one thing, but this game does have a lot more going on than I was expecting. So it's a simple card drafting game. So every round you're just getting one card, and trying to form sets. And the sets will give you points in various different ways. But the real twist to this is once you have 7 points, you can either basically you can bluff and just keep getting cards to try and get more points. You can just end the round there and say, "Stop! I want those points," and you get your 7 points, or and everyone else gets their points. Or you can push your luck. I think it's called Last Chance, and everyone else gets one more turn to try to get more points than you. And it's basically a bet. Like if everyone else has taken another turn, if you still have more points than everyone else, you get bonus points, and they get fewer points. And so that tension there is like one of the key elements here to sort of driving the tension. That the rounds are very short, right? So it's not a huge investment when you make these bets, and everyone knows exactly what they're playing with. It's a very sort of known system of how many cards are in the deck and what your odds are. So everyone's playing those odds and trying to maximize their points, obviously. So yeah, I found this really engaging. Plays fairly quickly and lots of little moments of tension, and beautiful pictures in the game too, which always helps. Have either of you played this?
Oh yeah, I've played this a bunch with my kids who really love the origami and are like try to recreate them just by looking at the picture really hard, which didn't end up working. But yeah, like you said, that push your luck aspect of the end of the round. Like, do I call it here? Do I give everyone an extra chance and potentially get a bunch of bonus points from that? That's really that leads to very cool moments. Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. I think you both have a couple of TTRPGs to discuss. I've not played any. I did get a couple of Zines come in, like TTRPG journaling Zines. I haven't had a chance to look those over yet, but yeah, I'm hoping to explore some more of those soon. So, Amanda, what have you been playing?
I've been playing Songs for the Dusk, which is a Blades in the Dark hack from Kavita Puduri. And it is basically mechanically the same system as Blades in the Dark, which is you roll a certain amount of dice and you can push your luck and get a... In Blades in the Dark, you decide to deal with the devil. In Songs for the Dusk, I think it's just pushing your luck and getting more dice, but there's bad stuff happening. And there's a lot of very little planning for a GM and a lot of cool moments. And compared to Blades in the Dark, which is in this very, very dark setting with people doing heists and stuff, in Songs for the Dusk, it's a sort of Shira-esque, like, you know, princess and monsters universe where people have superpowers, and it leads to a very interesting game that I can play with my 8 and my 9-year-old, and we all have lots of fun talking about, you know, how we get the I now I'm blanking on the last episode, but yeah. So there's a lot of very interesting moments that happen just because the dice say so, as opposed to like in D&D where you have to sort of craft a story, and then the little moments get determined by the dice. So that's been a bit of a revelation for me.
That's super cool to hear. Yeah, Blades in the Dark is a really interesting system. I played it just the one time. And it might be of interest to you, Daniel, because it's like mechanically it's really tight, and narratively the world building is really rich.
Yeah.
The world is like you described, Amanda. It's kind of dark and grimy, very much inspired or similar to a game that I think we covered before. It's called Dishonored, the video game.
Right.
So it's like a dark, kind of steampunky, grimy, gothic world, or kind of like what's another one that
like
Bloodborne.
Thief. Oh, okay.
Thief, Bloodborne kind of fits within that. You're all thieves, right? Every player is a thief. You'll all belong to a thief gang, no matter what. And therein lies sort of my problem with Blades in the Dark as a system, as a world, is like, I really like the game. I really like the concept. I don't like the world. So I wish it was in another world. And what you're describing, Amanda, sounds really cool. I'd love to play that system again. There is another system that's
Scum and
sci-fi.
Villainy?
Scum and Villainy. That's right. So it's Blades in the Dark in space. It's its own, like, non-branded space world. I guess you could play anything from, sort of Star Wars, thus Scum and Villainy, or kind of Guardians of the Galaxy sort of
very lovable
space.
rogue Han Solo vibes there, right?
That's right. No. So I got to get back to that system at some point.
Yeah, so this is a third-party sort of module for that, I guess. It looks like it's available on itch.io from what I'm seeing here right now.
Yeah, it's a hack of the system with its own world put on, and like, the character classes and the all of that sort of setting dependent stuff is very is all new, but it's mechanically the same dice system and the same like, I was gonna say combat rules, but the encounter rules, it's not really combat specific, but yeah.
Excellent. So that was Songs for the Dusk. Excellent. Mark, what have you been playing?
All I've been playing is my regular weekly campaign of D&D, which is going well. Amanda, I see you have a dragon, perhaps a tower in the background.
Oh,
somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
So
yeah,
I can tell you're a fan.
Reach, but
Is that the new Lego set?
Oh yes.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and it comes with an adventure, right? The box, or you download it or something?
Yeah, it does. But the yeah, I haven't. My wife wants me to run it for our group, but I'm like, well, you build the thing. You know where all the secret doors are. And...
Nice. No, that's super cool. It's sort of like meta, right? It's like
for sure.
It's a toy, it's art, it's a craft, but it's a game aid. And I've always thought that Legos are underserved game aid. I know that there is a tabletop war game that uses Legos.
Huh.
I think there is. I'll try and remember the name of it, but like everyone's got 1 or 2 bins of Legos kicking around or has access to it due to neighbor kids or whatever. So why can't we just use those for setting up our war game or RPG terrain? So there it is. They've done it for retail. So that's really cool. But the only other thing I'll mention for tabletop RPGs is, yes, I definitely want to get the Fallout tabletop RPG campaign up and running again. I do have material. It's just been hard scheduling that as a GM. And one tiny bit of our tabletop RPG news that I want to share is it'll be going on for another month or so on itch.io, like you mentioned, Daniel. There's a bundle going on right now, TTRPGs for Trans Rights, West Virginia. It's 529 items, PDFs, of tabletop role-playing games for $5. So go get it. At very least, it includes a cool system, which is powered by the Apocalypse based system called Fist, sort of like 80s action movie, kind of like Predator sort of thing. And there's a bunch of other games in there. I think 24XX, and what was the other one I was interested? Fox Curios Floating Bookshop. A lot of like just cool indie RPGs. So you mentioned zines. There's plenty of material to be seen there.
And to be something in there of interest.
Yeah, go check it out. It's a crazy value.
Excellent. Well, I think that is it for the playlist for this episode. So why don't we take a break and then we'll come back with our featured game.